You are listening to Venture Beyond, Stories from Hidden Worlds. If you enjoy this episode, please leave a like down below and share with a friend. And, if you haven't already, subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode or new series and updates. Coursing through the stars, fighting pirates, hideous monsters, and the very elements themselves. It's the next daring episode of Galaxies Beyond. Number 1. That Next Horizon. This episode brought to you by Doohan Fuel. Whether you're jet-setting to Europa for a family holiday or burning a haul to Vega Prime, you can count on Doohan neutron crystals to power your star drive through the cosmos. With our 95% reliability rating, the top in the industry, can you afford to take a chance on another brand when you need it most? Trust Doohan Fuel. Give her all she's got. United Space Administration Headquarters, Earth.
Tomorrow morning's the big test. You sure about this, Captain Wells?
Director Isaac Harlow asked in his too smooth voice as he lit up a Lady Luck cigarette with his fake gold-plated lighter. Jack Wells smirked, staring at the sleek, aerodynamic steel rocket standing on its tall, sweeping stabilizing fins. Her name, the USS Odyssey, a dagger to carve into the great unknown.
Someone's got to test her, boss. There's no way I'm missing out on the first flight of our fastest and most powerful rocket yet. The Quarian drive, though, it is, by its nature, unpredictable. Folding causality, tearing a hole through space-time. It just seems like there's too much that could go wrong,
Isaac said.
I'm sure you read that report that Dr. Verne from the Advisory Council put out.
Taking a sip of Liberty Lager, Jack idly rolled the bottle cap on his knuckles as he took in the side of the rocket on the launch pad.
Can't say that I have. Of course not, the director sighed. He's concerned about how the drive works. He thinks that we don't know enough about what the drive is capable of. It could fling you way off course, send you somewhere we can't bring you back from, even send you back or forwards in time, or worse. He even has doubts that it won't do serious damage to the fabric of space.
Jack shrugged.
Come on, boss. I don't really get how that stuff works. I just pilot the ship, see how she flies, make sure she doesn't crash. I'll leave that science stuff to the lab coats. He also suggested that if it is successful, we might come into contact with a hostile alien species that could put humanity in danger,
the director said. Laughing, Jack shook his head.
Oh, maybe we'll find a planet made of ice cream. Come on, boss. Aliens? We've explored almost half of the Milky Way and haven't run into even the suggestion of life outside our planet. What if it fails?
The other man said, taking a drag and blowing out a fountain of gray-blue smoke that filled the air.
What if you get stranded?
Taking another sip of beer, Jack chuckled.
That's what the standard neutron engine is for. Maybe it'll be a longer trip back from Alpha Centauri than we hoped, but it'll make for one heck of a story. And the eggheads will get a bunch of data to work with. Worst case scenario, I'll be back in a week, he shrugged. The Odyssey's a deep space exploration ship, not a hot rod. Got all the things a team would need to be comfortable for months. A week back in her will be a breeze.
Isaac sighed.
We really should do more testing. I don't like putting a life on the line at this point, especially not my favorite test pilots. If you're so worried, why let the test go forward, boss?
Jack asked.
Politics, of course, the director said, groaning. President Wright says he needs some kind of win to justify all the spending on research and development in the budget to Congress. Dr. McKenzie has him convinced that Project Odyssey's the win he's looking for. President won't listen to me. He thinks I want to run against him next year. Those guys from the opposition still trying to get you to run? Isaac shrugged. They call me every week. Not sure how many times I have to tell them it's not happening before they'll get the message. Well, you'd have my vote at least. He took another sip of lager. I'll stick to the rockets. We'll see if all this worrying and all has any merit. Can't wait to see how the Odyssey flies. It was the director's turn to chuckle this time. There isn't a scrap of fear in that rock of a head of yours, is there? Oh, I'm no stranger to fear, Jack said. He stepped away from the director's window to come sit at his desk. The pleather armchairs the man kept for visitors were comfortable, if rather cheaply made. Director Isaac Harlow was a cheapskate, but his frugality had ensured that projects at the United Space Administration always came in under budget, something that made him wildly popular with politicians on all sides of the aisle. Really? Isaac said incredulously. Just what are you afraid of? He took another drag of the cigarette, his cracked, leathery face plainly showing his disbelief. My mother's wrath, God, and dying without seeing what lies beyond that next horizon, Jack said. He finished the bottle of lager with a final sip and pocketed the bottle cap. The director laughed. Having met your mother, I can see why you put her first. Isaac reached under his desk, pulled out another Liberty lager from a hidden miniature refrigerator, and handed the bottle to Jack. With how much trouble my brothers and I caused back in the day, it's no small miracle I'm still alive. She certainly threatened to help me meet my maker enough. Jack grabbed the ice-cold bottle and popped the cap off with a snap of his wrist. I swear you gotta show me how to do that someday, Isaac said, shaking his head in disbelief while taking another drag of his cigarette. Jack smirked as he took his first sip of the smooth, semi-sweet, bready liquid. How about I show you after I get back from the test tomorrow? He held his hand out. The director smiled and shook the outstretched hand with a firm handshake. That's the deal, Captain, and I will hold you to it. You know me, boss. I never break my promises. He leaned back in the chair. I think I'll have a barbecue back at the ranch to celebrate. I'll show you then. Oh, I'm certainly not missing that Texas barbecue. I still dream about that brisket you smoked last time, Isaac said. He flicked ash off the end of his cigarette into a Bakelite ashtray. Jack grinned. Maybe you'll bring that daughter of yours. She's single now, isn't she? The director coughed in the middle of a drag, taking a moment to clear his throat. Don't even think about it, Jack. Not in a million years. Who, me? Jack took another sip of beer and winked. Wouldn't even dream of it. Sure, the director said, shaking his head. He looked back to the window Jack had been looking out of before. One thing's for sure. Tomorrow morning's gonna be one to remember, regardless of what happens. That it will. Jack looked back at the Odyssey, admiring the ship as moonlight glinted on the smooth, stainless steel hull. Big day, Jack, you ready for this? Gene Corey, the equipment tech, said as he looked over Jack's form-fitting silver plasteel spacesuit. Jack chuckled. Just another day at the office, Gene. He looked over to a mirror on the wall and ran a gloved hand through his short blonde hair. He saw an eyelash or other stray hair that had fallen on his cheek under his brown eyes, and he swatted it away. The last thing he needed was something flying around in his helmet during the test. He checked his chin. Per tradition, Jack had decided not to shave this morning, so his 5 o'clock shadow from last night had evolved into a short stubble. Something always seemed to go wrong in tests where he shaved in the morning, so, even though he didn't really believe in that stuff, he'd stop shaving on test days, just in case. Right, how silly of me, jumping to Alpha Centauri in a matter of seconds as opposed to the usual week. You are listening to Venture Beyond, Stories from Hidden Worlds. If you enjoy this episode, please leave a like down below and share with a friend. And, if you haven't already,
Subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode or new series and updates. Rumors of my death have been wildly exaggerated. Of course. What's going on? It's been like, an amount of time since I've been on. Dude, we've been traveling for like the last 2 weekends. After not traveling for ever. So, yeah, that's different. We went to many places, Texas, just all over the place. Saw a lot of nothing and saw a lot of something and then saw some more something and then a whole lot of nothing too. That's how it goes. It is 2 weekends too long. I agree, but they were 2 good weekends. Lots of cool things. We did have fun. Absolutely. I got to pretend to be a paleontologist for a day, or at least a geologist for a day. And before that, I got to be a Taekwondo coach, sort of. So, yeah, it's good. I was wearing many hats. Which is funny because I didn't bring a hat either time, but I was wearing many hats. That's how it goes sometimes. You're wearing many hats metaphorically, but not really at the same time. Let's see, it seems like, let me check the mic. It seems like it's set a little low for some reason. There you go. Is that better? I think we had to turn it down last time because it was like super loud. What kind of kid cartoon adventures you been on, I would tell you, but then you would know. And sometimes the mystery is more fun. How you doing, Jaden? We got Lee too. Heck yeah. What's going on? Got, a slightly different kind of show today. Because, well, last time I was on, Jaden had a fantastic question about writing main characters. And I was like, that'd be a really fun thing to do. Just like actually dig in there and talk about how, like, what is a main character supposed to do? How do you make a main character? How do you make a likable main character or an unlikable main character? You really want to do that for some reason. Like what makes a character things like that, things that I think are very easy to get wrong. And unfortunately, in our modern age of writing and creative media, it's kind of an age where we perilously get so much of that wrong. So I don't know. This is what I know. Other people write different ways. But I'm going to talk about how like I work on making a main character. And I kind of
put it in the description of this video. The way to think about your main character is they are the fulcrum of your story. They are the tool by which the story is put together and what it pivots on. Your main character is what makes the story actually happen. Sometimes it'll be happening at them. Usually, like at the beginning, the story happens at the main character for a bit, and then they get going and they start making choices instead of choices being made for them, and things like that. But we'll get more into the weeds of that soon. But that's kind of like, it's kind of setting the mood. Like, what is a main character? They are what the entire story revolves around. And if different elements in the story are not tying back to that main character, you're missing something. Not everything has to tie back to the main character, but most things should in some way connect back to what your main character is doing, or what they believe, or exposes some different side of the character in some way, even if it's not direct. But before we like really get in there, my new book is like out for pre-order right now. I've been working on The Bones of Night for quite a while now, and I've put out some like little beta versions of the story here and there, but it's done. The whole book is done. It's done right now. I've been writing this for a while. It's a book that's been very difficult to write because it's rather spooky. And I'm not exactly the biggest fan of horror stories, and I don't know, it was kind of like you ever had something that like tasted really good, but it was like extremely hot or like very spicy or something, and you're like, ah, this hurts so much, but it tastes so good. Or like you're super hungry and you still like gotta eat it, and it's like, that's kind of what writing this was like for me. So now you get to enjoy the hot and spicy, not in a book talk way, but spicy in a spooky dooky way. You know, it's right there. You can get it. It's totally there. It officially comes out May 1st. I'm still working on the audiobook. That'll probably be I'm shooting for it to be the same day, but I don't know if Audible's approval process is different in any way. But we'll see. The aim is for it to come out the same day. I just don't have the pre-order open for that yet. Maybe by next weekend I will. It's something that I'm working on as we speak. Well, not as we speak. Yeah, because I'm talking to you instead. So maybe I shouldn't be talking to you, and I should be working on that. But I'm talking to you instead because we have things to talk about. Many things. Too many things. No, I'm just kidding. So yes, I have the link to the pre-order up on in the chat. It's pinned in the chat. It's also in the description. If you have any interest whatsoever in the book, or like a really unconventional, strange kind of story. You know, I think this might be very, very interesting. If you haven't heard of my story, The Bones of Night, it follows a... you take the role of an investigator looking into the disappearance of the crew of a space mining ship. So you're combing through the crew logs that they've left, because that's kind of the only data that you have. All of the sensor data and flight data and things from this mining ship are gone, but you have the crew logs, and you have to kind of piece together what the heck happened. Can you trust everything that they're saying? Are they hallucinating, or are they crazy, or is someone pooping their pants while they're talking? There's a whole lot of stuff going on, and it's if anything, it's a really interesting written take on kind of the found footage epistolary style of novel, which was kind of the whole point behind it, is kind of tackling in a kind of story that I just haven't tried to work on before, and lo and behold, it worked. Well, you can tell me if it worked or not. I think it worked. I had my wife Nicole read it, and she was like, whoa. So, kind of think I had something there. So yeah, check it out. If you don't, you're missing out. Check it out, or you're missing out. So let's get to our main subject for the night. Let's talk about main characters. What is a main character? Main character a main character is the fulcrum of the story. Fulcrum or pivot of the story. What does this mean? Basically, a main character is what makes the story happen. They should make the story happen. We'll get into where that gets complicated later. They should embody at least, let's see, I'm working on this as we go, if you can't tell. They should embody they should embody the major theme of the story, and likely several secondary themes. So if the story is about, say, the conflict between an honorable path and something much more dishonorable, or even dark, evil, you should see that conflict play out in them, in the character, but also in the conflict that they have externally. It should be inside, it should be outside. Even if the inside conflict is just kind of a different flavor of the same thing. In Batman, you see Batman constantly dealing with the fact that he won't kill people, and somehow every single time he sends these people to the most unreliable prisons imaginable to man, and these people that he keeps bringing to justice just come spiraling out of these prisons, and he's got to catch them all over again. Well, that's a bit of a problem. It's a bit of a conflict. I'm sure there's many instances where Batman kind of wishes, man, really wish I didn't have to worry about the Joker springing out of Arkham Prison again. But it is what it is. He has made the choice to do what he's going to do. That's his prerogative. That's his MO. It's how he operates, and he can't allow himself to cross that line, because then he's just like the people that he's fighting. Not every character conflict is going to play out like that, or even stay static like that, because Batman never really changes once he's made his mind on that, but it shows. It's kind of a good example to point to, like how a conflict in a character can both embody something happening in the story, but also cause them trouble. Period, which we'll get more into also. Let's see. They should make the story happen. They should embody the major theme of the story and likely several secondary themes. Let's see. Name. They should be active. What I mean by they should be active is that they should be making choices. They should be trying to push forward towards something, right? In a stock standard save the world kind of story, like let's defeat the Demon King. Well, you just heard it right there. They're going to defeat the Demon King. So most of the actions, not all of the actions that they take, most of the actions, most of the choices that the main character makes should be pushing towards that objective, right? I need to get to where the Demon King is, or I need to get something that allows me to defeat the Demon King, or I need to fight the Demon King because he's right in front of me and that's what I got. You could even get the inverse of that, like the Demon King is fighting me right now and I'm not strong enough and I need to run hard, like really fast, to get away so that I can get the thing I need to defeat the Demon King. But even that, like, regression from the goal is a choice that moves you towards it, because if you in that instance, if you're right there, you're gonna get creamed by the dude, and if the main character is dead, it's hard for the story to happen. Not impossible. There's a lot of stories that they'll keep plugging along anyway, and maybe the main character you thought was there wasn't really the main character the whole time. But the point is that something like 80% of their choices should be focused on do the thing that I set out to do. Complete the quest, right? You can't just Skyrim a story forever and do every single side quest imaginable to man. One thing that a lot of people kind of point to is like, well, you can just do side quests forever and it doesn't matter, is a story like Freerun, and they're kind of missing the point. Even instances where Freerun and the party go and do something that takes like a year that isn't going towards I can't remember the name that they gave it, is like Affelheim or something, heaven. Even the times where they're like holed up in a cabin for a couple months because it's snowing and stuff like that, they're still generally pushing towards that objective. It's just they have to continue to survive, so sometimes they take jobs that pay the bills or open a door or something like that. And along the way, she's reconnecting with her past, and that was kind of the whole point of her going on the journey in the first place. So by taking a side quest, by taking side jobs, she is actually she's pushing towards the goal of the story. That's kind of the brilliance of Freerun. But this isn't a stream of me just gushing over Freerun, because it would be a very different kind of thing. If you want to see that, we can do that sometime. Let's see. They should make the story happen. They should embody a major theme of the story, likely several secondary themes. They should be active. And they should never be let's see, infallible, or wow, I can't spell infallible. I was one letter off. Great. They should never be infallible or omnipotent. Jeez. Focus on smaller words. They're easier to spell under pressure. No. What I mean by this is that if they always are able to just muscle their way out of a problem with no struggle whatsoever, or every time they say something they're right, or something like that, you're missing a huge chance to show growth. A perfect example is I mean, there's a lot of examples in the last 5 years. Rey from Star Wars. Just every time it seemed like they were actually going to knock her down and be like, give her something that she literally couldn't overcome, she just kind of awesomed her way through everything. That's not powerful, and it's completely throwing away any opportunity to show growth in the character, whether it's learning from defeat whether it's actually rising above some kind of conflict in an unexpected way. Like, you know, maybe they have to compromise something in themselves. Like, you know, Rey never had to actually consider the thought of succumbing to the dark side, possibly, to defeat Supreme Leader Snoke, or, you know, somehow he returned, you know, the Emperor. She just awesomed her way, or was given the solution to something by somebody else. It kind of sucks. See, what if a main character is omnipotent but lacks emotional depth and goes on a story to learn emotional depth? So that kind of story is one where you don't challenge the character in a way that that is power focused. Like, you know, One Punch Man, are you gonna actually throw a character at him that's stronger than One Punch Man? You know, someone that has even more than 1% of all the energy from the Big Bang? That's just not gonna happen. It's not going to feasibly happen. So usually his challenges are of a different sort. A lot of his challenges are trying not to overdo it. Things like that. Another great example of the kind of thing that you're talking about is honestly Freerin. She is, in a certain sense, omnipotent. There's nothing that she couldn't just blast her way out of. She didn't need Stark to fight the red dragon that was terrorizing this village. She didn't need Fern to pass as a first-class mage in order to go to the northern lands. Not really. She could have just gone on her own. She didn't need, hell, a lot of things. She really doesn't need help. But that's not the point of her story. Her challenge is connecting to others in a profound way, in seeing the course of time in a different way, in actually learning more about those around her. All the fights, all of the actions, all of the physical challenges, you know, the battle challenges that Freerin faces are really just things to make sure that you're still awake and you keep coming for the awesome Sakuga when it comes down to it. Because the real meat and potatoes of Freerin is seeing her connect to Stark and Fern and the other characters in a way that she's never been able to connect to another person. Or realizing something, a new facet to something that somebody said to her before, like, you know, usually Himmel. Things like that. But that's a very unconventional style of story. It's very difficult to write because you want to constantly show, oh, look how powerful and strong my hero is. They literally can't be stopped. But that gets kind of tasteless after a while. You know, most of the time, if you watch like Freerin in a fight, she just steps back and lets Fern and Shark do it, because they're the ones in development. They need to actually rise above their own limits in that respect. And, you know, if they truly get in trouble, then she's there to, you know, just get blasted, you know, Danny DeVito style. Especially when the danger comes from herself, like in the first class mage exam. So I would say it takes a certain level of writing experience to really take on that kind of story. It's something that it's so tempting to just make a crazy power fantasy turbo, you know, like look at my unstoppable meat machine. That your story at a certain point is just going to go nowhere, and even if it goes somewhere, people aren't going to want to stick around, you know, because it's like, okay, well, every time something happens, he just farts and everything explodes. Woohoo. A really good example of a nearly unstoppable character that's still very interesting is John Wick. John Wick has serious limits, right? Like, he's mostly human at the end of the day. If he gets hit enough, he will stop, right? If he has too many people shooting at him, he has to retreat. He has to start taking out, you know, more targets. He has to do something, right? If he runs out of bullets, he's got to improvise, go hand to hand. Sometimes he's fighting someone who's better than him or has better weapons than him. All kinds of things. But those limits make those fight scenes really interesting. You know, he's constantly being pushed to his limits in ways that even he wouldn't expect, right? So if I'm taking this right, if the main character is omnipotent, it would be an interesting story idea, like omnipotent main character fallen, and their goal is to regain their omnipotent powers. That can work. Yeah, it can work. It all depends on execution. A lot of the things I'm going to tell you today, like, don't do this. A lot of these things have been done well before, and it was totally fine. In fact, it was excellent because of that. You know, stories with omnipotent characters have been told and told well, and have been widely acclaimed for it. But they are very tricky to write. I prefer to write characters that definitely are not omnipotent, that don't have a solution for every problem. The closest I've really gotten to that is a series that I'm working on right now called Superpower Panic, and even in that, she has serious limits, which we'll talk about later. We'll talk about that in its own dedicated stream when I'm finally releasing that book. By the way, that or my series Galaxies Beyond, probably going to be the next book that comes out. Just a little preview there. So let's see. Main characters should make the story happen. They should embody a major theme. They should be active. They should never be infallible or omnipotent. They should, and this is kind of the same point, but from a different angle. They should be challenged on most steps of the story. Now, this is something that, like, if you're writing something that's more on a comedic note, you might think, like, oh, well, I don't know, this character isn't actually ever seriously challenged. Usually they are through jokes. They're like the butt of the joke, or they lost an argument with someone because they weren't as funny, or they didn't have as good a point, or something like that, right? Just look at some of the characters from some Mel Brooks films. A lot of them, they're these big, larger than life characters, or these big, mostly infallible, like they can't actually be pushed down, like Robin Hood from Robin Hood Men in Tights. You're not going to stop Robin Hood. It's just not going to happen, especially a borderline cartoon of a Robin Hood in Men in Tights, where he literally swims from the Levant to the shores of England. Like, that's a bit much, man. That's a long swim. But a lot of the times, he's either the butt of the joke, or he gets parried in a joke that is kind of like, oh. Now, that's not to say that he's always the butt of the joke. Most of the time, he has a final line that writes it all in the end. So he's not just a giant punching bag, but yeah, there is always like something that's standing in his way, right? And sometimes the joke is that he's Robin Hood and he's super overpowered, because the story needs him to be super overpowered because he's Robin Hood. Now, what I mean by they should be challenged on most steps of the story is that each you can kind of think of like the chain that makes up your story as like a series of quests, right? In a RPG, you got this nice little chain of quests that happen. Well, each of those quests should push or pull the character in a way that is not always unexpected, but maybe to them is unexpected. One of the classic examples is encountering the Sphinx, and a impossibly powerful, larger than life, strong hero has to fight a mental obstacle. Answer me these riddles or I will eat you and you will die. Right? And that pushes the character in a different way than you would have seen them otherwise. Yeah, grounding characteristics are extremely important. This isn't to say, so modern writing is obsessed with the idea of relatability being tied to what they look like compared to what the audience looks like, or they say certain kinds of keywords that gives you a wink wink nod nod to certain groups that take words extraordinarily seriously. Just to kind of skirt around that a little bit. But what really makes a character something that's grounded. Let's go ahead and make that point. They should be somewhat grounded. There should be some kind of anchor to some kind of reality. And what I mean by this is there needs to be things that happen that pull them back to their limits, right? It's hard to fight on an empty stomach, right? Like, that's a classic right there. They've been journeying for so long that now they're extremely hungry and they didn't pack enough food and they've got to find food somewhere. Well, that's something that can't always be solved by brute force, right? Like, what if they're in a desert? What if they're in an icy tundra? What if they're at the bottom of the ocean, stuck in a diving bell? They can't really get out to solve their food problem. What if they're in space? All their food reserves are gone. They're about to lose oxygen. Well, that's a pretty real problem, and it's something that even if your reader has never faced themselves, they can imagine facing that. You can imagine not having water, potable water at that. You know, if you're stranded out in the ocean and you can't start a fire to purify some water, you have to stare down the barrel of possibly drinking seawater to survive, and that is a terrible idea. But you know, your character could become desperate enough that that's something that they have to consider. Let's see. Yeah, and you know, having characters that make the main character question or challenge their own values is something that's pretty important. And that does tie into, they should be challenged on most steps of the story. You know, maybe we have to fight the Demon King character. They come to a village where that was treated well by the Demon King. Like, he slaughtered everybody in these other villages, but this one, he came, he made sure it was protected. He's looked after the people there, you know, because they didn't try to fight him. They said, no, we'll do whatever you want. Please don't kill us. And the Demon King listened. Well, not only does that question, should you fight the Demon King, it also gives you a chance to expose a little bit of your villain. It's like, oh, they actually have a merciful side to them. They have a they aren't just this unstoppable force that will sweep away everything in their path regardless of what it does. If you lay down your arms and say, no, please, you know, spare me, you could be spared. And that makes you question, that would make, you know, the hero question, you know, is there a way to reason with this person, right? do I have to go kill this person? Is this someone who, because of my perspective, I just don't understand what they want? You know, the rest of we don't actually know what they want. Things like that, right? Difference of perspective and ideas, ideology, even religion, things that set you apart, that set your character apart from either their environment or another character. Like, you know, if you have a goody two shoes, always saves the kitten from the tree type of character, and one of the people in their party is a I'll do anything if I get paid for it type person, like they would, you know, rip off they would steal candy from a baby if somebody paid them to do it, you know, stuff like that. Well, those characters are going to be constantly butting heads, right? Because goody two shoes and I'll do anything for money, just they don't gel, and they will constantly call each other out, right? Like, dude, why do you always steal lollipops from kids? That's gross, man. That sucks. It's like, oh, why wouldn't you steal lollipops from children? I love doing that. It's delicious because I got a lollipop. Right? So not only make the main character in your story somewhat grounded and of high morals, not necessarily essential, but have the villain have a human side to them despite their opposing side. Not always necessary. Not always necessary. This sounds like I'm just like saying like, oh, just do anything. The thing is, it's all depending on execution and what kind of story you're trying to tell. In some ways, me talking about how you build a main character is kind of putting the cart in front of the horse, because you kind of need to know what the story is that this main character is going into. I typically start when I'm working on a story, I start from the characters, and the characters weave the story together, right? But most writers, well, I don't know if I'll say most writers, a lot of writers, they start with a solid chain of story and figure out where the main character fits in there. And a lot of times, their main character won't be of high morals. Just look at anti-hero characters like Shinji Ikari in Neon Genesis Evangelion. He's just a shitty kid. He's all right. That's a little mean, but you know, he's just a wimpy, depressed kid, right? Who has serious separation anxiety, abandonment issues. I think if Misato told him, "Hey, if you run away from all of this madness, we got this. We're good. You don't need to do this anymore." If she had told him that from minute one, he would have completely noped out of the story. Just like, well, deuces, see you later. The only reason that Shinji really gets pulled into the story of Neon Genesis Evangelion is because he wants to, 1, connect to his father, 2, stick it to his father, 3, there's a pretty girl involved, 4, there's many pretty girls involved, and 4, this is in order, by the way, the last thing on that priority list is oh shit, other people are in danger, and if I don't do this, they're gonna get hurt. he doesn't have super high morals. He just doesn't. A lot of characters in stories don't really have super high morals. A lot of characters are extremely amenable to murder to get their way, right? Or, you know, they're more than happy to steal. All right, just look at Ocean's 11. You have an entire team of people that are willing to steal from somebody else just because, right? There is a reason, but the entire story is about robbing a legitimate business because the person who's in charge of security is dating the ex-wife of the leader. Now, it's not like this villain character, you know, in Tony Benedict actually had any direct conflict with Danny Ocean in Ocean's 11 to really justify this whole kickoff. But we, the audience, we don't really care. We want to see how the hell this whole heist thing goes, right? Because you're kind of following along with these interesting characters, which we'll talk about interesting here in a second. I am going to pause for a second. I gotta go run to the restroom. Do not go anywhere, and if you do, I will find you. No, I'm just kidding. Be right back. And we're back. Okay, so to put the idea in sharper focus, right? Let's see. There should be something that the reader, viewer, whatever, can identify with in the character. This has nothing to do with immutable characteristics, right? This has nothing to do with age. This has nothing to do with sex. This has nothing to do with whether, you know, male or female. Like, it has nothing to do with their skin color. It has nothing to do with what color their eyes are. It has nothing to do with the fact that they dyed their hair last Tuesday. It has nothing to do with the fact that they get their nails done every day, right? I don't know why the hell you would do that, but, you know, it has nothing to do with that stuff, right? Cosmetic or superficial detail is pointless in this, because you could just as easily transfer that to someone else and people don't identify the same way. The something the reader can identify with is an emotional attachment in some way. They are someone who is who exemplifies either something the reader themselves is going through, something the reader themselves has gone through, or something they could see going through, right? Like, I'll just pull out another example in fiction. John Wick. Most of us have not had to go through the death of their wife. Hopefully, it's something that none of us will have to go through, but it's something that statistically can happen, right? It's something that everyone who, married or otherwise, can feel in a way that is beyond something like, yeah, oh, this person has the same color eyes I do. That's amazing, right? The fact that they have a situation in life that you can either envision or have been there yourself or going through that yourself is very profound. It's something that can even change after something similar happens. Like, maybe you've lost a loved one, period, right? I can tell you, I just rewatched John Wick, and the scene where they, you know, show his wife dying, like, hit me in a different way this time, because I've lost someone recently. Wasn't my wife, thankfully, because, I mean, life would be over at that point, but she does still have school loans to pay off, it's true. But I just felt it in a different way, you know. And that's not to say it didn't hit home when I watched it the first time, but the scene had a different definition to it, right? And that's something that can happen often, like rewatching a kids movie. You will find so many things that you're like, holy crap, how did I not pick up on this as a kid? Not even gonna get into it because there's a lot of crazy examples, but this something that the reader can identify with is often mistaken in modern writing as physical characteristics, immutable characteristics. They look like something. And I'm here to tell you that that kind of stuff is largely meaningless in the grand scheme of things. Maybe there's some kind of story reason that a character needs to look a certain way, or something like that, right? And if you're writing a character to look a certain way, and then an adaptation changes that, that's a little weird. But you shouldn't be writing on physical appearance or identity, to somehow capture an audience that a solid characteristics, like what makes a character outside of appearance, actually does. So like if they're experiencing something impactful like the death of a loved one, first job, awkwardness, growing up, etc., would make the character interesting. It can. Definitely can. And this might be like really frustrating that like a lot of the answers I'm going to give tonight are like, it can, or that can help, or maybe. But again, I go back to the principle that everything in writing is execution, right? Every piece of bad writing advice that I could give you tonight has been done right somewhere else, right? So it depends on how you do it, how the story is shaped around it, things like that. Just throwing in willy-nilly, this person just had a friend die, and then doing nothing with that. It's like mentioned, and then you don't see it in the character. You don't feel that with the character. You never have a moment where someone says, oh, hey, I'm so sorry that you lost Bloopy-Doo. And they're like, oh, God, why did you bring it up? Whatever it is, right? If you have a situation and then nothing happens with it, you might as well have just not had it. Right? If you're... so a lot of people ragged on the Andy Garfield Spider-Man movies. The Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2. They ragged on his performance of Peter Parker because they said that he never had like that awkwardness of Peter Parker before. He was just like a quirky dude. I think that's a little unfair. Just a little bit. But I can see where people are coming from with that, right? Like, it's only a problem sort of for a little bit in the beginning, and then it's never a problem again. Whereas in Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, it's something that he runs up against several times, and it makes for some of the more relatable moments in the movie where you're like, oh, okay, I get this. I've been there. I've been bullied in school, or I've seen kids be bullied in school. I've seen someone act like Flash did and be a dick to women, or, you know, rough up somebody for lunch money, or, you know, something like that, right? Or I can imagine what a bully like that would be, right? Because you can see that, or you've been there, or you have seen someone go through that, right? It puts you in a place where you're the character that you see on screen or on the page isn't just a set of words. They are this emotional construct that lives in between the media, like what's on the page, and you, right? It takes a different meaning. From what I understand is, if a side character is going to die, there should be context beforehand. Absolutely, context is everything. Of the normal relations to the main character that should change the story. Exactly. Notice in Spider-Man films, the first two runs, not Homecoming, because they kind of skipped the Uncle Ben thing because I think they didn't want to get memed on again. You have a scene with Uncle Ben, at least one scene with Uncle Ben before he bites a lead bullet, right? That you can understand their relationship before it's in peril. In fact, the first Spider-Man movie, you have... let's see. And this is just a mental count. It's not going to be exact. You've got the scene where Peter comes home and Uncle Ben's like, dude, what the hell? Where you been? He doesn't say that, of course, because Uncle Ben in that version is an angel. But he's like, hey, what are you doing, son? You're being crazy, running around. Why don't you ever hang out with friends? Then you've got, let's see, the scene where he's talking to Aunt May about getting a job, and he can't find a job because he doesn't know anything with computers and doesn't have, you know, experience with computers and stuff. You've got the scene after Peter comes home after the visiting the lab, and he's like, hey Peter, what are you doing? And you've got Peter coming back down, and well, you've even got the scene where Uncle Ben's talking to Aunt May about what Peter's going through and how he's changing and stuff like that, and then they finally he's like, oh, I'll drive you to the library, you know, even though Peter's not actually going to a library, and putting him in the situation where he is going to eventually be killed in the story, right? That's more than one scene. Their context is excruciatingly crucial in storytelling. If you just say, and then Uncle Ben died, and then you walk away, and nobody knows who Uncle Ben is, like you've never seen Uncle Ben, you've never seen your character, you've never seen Peter Parker with Uncle Ben, you've never even heard an iconic line from Uncle Ben. It's like, and then Uncle Ben died, and I went on to become Spider-Man. There are few ways that you could waste people's time more. Just to to put it lightly. Throwing in something that people can connect with, but not giving any of that connective tissue to the character that is supposed to be, that it's supposed to be attached to, sucks. It sucks really bad. It's a terrible mistake. Don't do it. Really don't do it. And that's one of those where you can't actually write it well because it's just terrible writing. So just don't do that ever. So let me enumerate some things that sorry, I keep zooming in here by accident. Let me enumerate some things that people can identify with, right? Life events. Personality quirks. Now, personality quirks are stuff like maybe they're a kleptomaniac, and that causes them a lot of problems, right? They're constantly getting, caught by people for stealing. They're like, dude, why'd you take my wallet again? It's like, I'm sorry, I can't help it. This isn't to say make a quirky character just because you think that'll be relatable. They can be, but the more quirks you give someone, the harder, the more burden it is on you to not make those overpowering to the point where people are like, just leave me alone. I'm tired of this weird, funky character that you made. You have to basically be much more careful with your writing at that point to make sure that the quirkiness is actually endearing and not annoying. And that's hard to do, so just don't do it. If you want a great example of a quirky character done right, watch Ed from Cowboy Bebop. Ed is quirky as all get out. Just a weird girl. But Ed is right up there. Like, probably... On some days, I would say Ed is the best character in Cowboy Bebop. Ed's the second best character in Cowboy Bebop, because the first best character is Ein the dog. It's just true. No, I'm just kidding. Ed and Ein are a unit. They're together. They exist in the same, the same realm of good in Cowboy Bebop. And if you've never seen Cowboy Bebop, you need to fix that. And I'm not talking about the Netflix show because they really screwed the pooch on what was otherwise a pretty solid show. Like they had 80% of a good show with that. Anyway, I could talk about that for a while. I'm not going to because I would get us seriously off base here. Anyway, personality quirks. Maybe they have Tourette's. That can be really difficult to write around. But this just kind of thing that they do, or like maybe they always it sounds weird to call this a personality quirk. Instead of calling it a personality quirk, let's rephrase it as challenges or problems. Maybe they are mute. They can't talk, right? Maybe they are missing a limb. Maybe they have been incarcerated in the past and have difficulty holding a job. Maybe they're colorblind, and oh god. Maybe they're colorblind and they don't know when the green light is on. So they just go right through red lights when they're driving and probably shouldn't be driving. Yeah. Anyway. Stuff like that. Problems. Challenges. If a popular kid in a school story and they were connected to the main character throughout the story and the popular kid dies missing, it should be addressed emotionally, mentally, and or socially. Yes, because I want you to think about it. If the most popular kid in your school were to die, especially violently or mysteriously, right? Like they just disappeared. Would there be a single person in that school who wouldn't talk about it? Like, it would be very strange if the most popular kid in school, right, or even a mildly popular kid in school were to be killed or go missing or something like that, and just nobody talks about it. Zero people talk about it. That's weird as fuck. That's some everybody's body snatchers situation. Like all these people are fake, and maybe the only real person is your main character. And that's the thing. When you don't connect a traumatic event or a notable event, even like just something happening, like I don't know, the president is coming into town. That's kind of a big deal, right? The president's coming into town and he's, coming with his entire, gaggle of security and stuff like that. The president is coming to our school. That is a huge event, right? Even if it's like the mayor is coming to our school, that's a big event. There's a lot of things that happen with that. There's security that comes around. There's press that comes because they want to see what the mayor is doing at the town. Like, what are you doing in the in the school? Why are you at the school, man? There's press secretaries. There's representatives from the city hall. Things like that. There's all kinds of shit going on because the mayor is coming to your school or the president's coming to your school. Like, could you imagine the chaos if the president of the United States were to come to your school, regardless of who that president is? It could have been Dwight D. Eisenhower or William Howard Taft or like some, just any president, right? In any time. They're coming to your school. Would there be a single person who would not be talking about it in some way? Whether it's dismissive, obsessive, or any number of things. Right? So, president's coming to visit your school. You've got one kid that's like, ugh, I hate that guy. My parents didn't vote for him because he's a terrible person. And then you got the other kid that's like, but my parents said that he's the best thing since sliced bread. And then you've got the skeptic who's just like, dude, why do you even listen to politics, man? Let's just like read poetry. Nah. Then you got the kid who's like, knows everything about the person that's coming, whether it's the mayor or the president or whatever, right? They know everything about them. They're obsessive, like even teachers, reacting like, oh my God, we have so much work to do. I have to chaperone all these kids while the president is here. Oh my God. Do you get what I'm getting at here? The major event should be impacting people in a way that's realistic. Even stuff that's not directly impactful to a certain character, it can have an impact anyway, right? So let's say your character's sister just died. They go back to school, and just a random kid in class with them, not even a friend, just someone in class, heard that character lost their sister and says, dude, I'm so sorry. I heard about your sister. I can't imagine what you're going through right now. I'm sorry. Would you ever need to talk? Anything like that, right? Or like, dude, I can't imagine what happened. I'm so sorry for you. Or, just like other kids don't, the main character feels like the other kids aren't looking at them the same way, or they're looking at the other kids in a different way because now they've dealt directly with mortality, and now they're like, who else in my life is gonna die now? It was my sister. She was younger than me. I can't believe my sister died. All these people are still alive, but my sister is dead. Shit like that. Depending on your story, depending on where they are in life, their situation, how they're caring about, if they're amicable or they're, standoffish. Different situations in a character's life will affect other characters directly or indirectly in different ways. And the more that you understand how situations with the main character impact directly or indirectly other characters and can start connecting things to that, the more believable and the deeper you can build out that situation in the character. So have different perspectives from the side characters to interact with the main character perspective. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. Now, if you're in a story where you're coming from like first person, right? I would say 90% of the time, if you're writing a first person story, do not shift perspective to another character. It's very disorienting. It's very difficult to do right. And it has the effect of making a story feel unanchored. First person stories in particular suffer from this. The second you detach the narrative and go to a different character, it feels wrong. That's my perspective on it. There's writers who've done it right, and it works really well. I would never do it. Which is funny because I'm talking about my new book, and technically every story in that book is from a first person perspective, but you're hearing the character talk to a computer, so it's a little different. It's not the same thing, right? Now, third person narratives, those have a different kind of feel where you can shift perspectives. I would advise that you only shift perspectives in between chapters. Do not, 90% of the time, don't shift perspective to another character in the middle of a chapter, especially in the middle of a conversation. It is very difficult to do that without readers being like, okay, what the hell just happened? How am I on this guy now? What happened? There are ways to do it right. I have a couple of extremely specific moments in my writing that breaks this rule. And I'm probably still not doing it right. But that's a general thing. I would say don't take the chance. Stick with a chapter break. When you get to the next chapter, you can shift perspective to the person that you want. Now, when we're talking about perspective from side characters, that doesn't necessarily need to be coming in their own narrative, right? So like, you don't necessarily need to have a chapter from the perspective of your main character, and then in the next chapter you see the same events from their friend that was walking next to them the whole time, or continuing the same scene with their friend that was walking with them or talking with them, whatever it is, right? You can get the perspective of a side character from a number of ways. A character can talk to you, talk to your main character, say, let's say your main character just walked in the room. Main character lost their sister. Side character says, "Oh, hey, are you okay? I heard about what happened. God, I can't imagine. It's just, do you need anything? What does all of that tell you about the perspective of that side character? They're having trouble processing what happened to the main character. They don't know what to say to the main character. They're operating with, platitudes, and like they're trying to figure out, like, how do I talk to this person, right? How do I act normal? It's kind of like in stoner movies. It's like, do they think that I'm drunk? Do they think I'm on drugs? Do they think I'm on drugs? Do they think I'm on drugs? But it's, do they think that I care? Because I want to make sure that they know that I care. But if I make it too obvious, then I'm gonna make them sad. Stuff like that, right? You can very effectively get the perspective of another character without ever shifting perspective from how they talk, how they act, what they do for a character. Like, maybe the main character is suffering from a headache, and they run and grab some Tylenol, and they're like, hey, here's some Tylenol. I got it, in my bag. Let's say I have 3 perspectives, and one perspective in chapter. I should only shift perspective during a chapter break unless it's pulled off really well. And I would say 99.9999999% of the time, you're just not gonna pull it off very well. This isn't a doubt of you as a writer. Please understand that. What I'm saying is, this is a very difficult thing to do without losing the reader really hard. It takes a lot of finesse to pull off without losing them. Very, very difficult. That's why I say, just don't do it. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. there are the times where I have done it, or these aren't published yet, so you can't really see them. But the times where it happens in my writing, it's usually tied to something. We'll talk about that later. That's a conversation for the future. Yeah, it's a huge challenge. Yeah, it's a nigh insurmountable challenge and a extreme risk. the thing is, you should take risks in your writing, right? You should challenge the reader in certain ways. But if you push too hard and the reader stops reading because they're like, fuck, I could only take so much of this, you kind of screwed the pooch. You messed up on the one thing that a story is supposed to do, which is to keep the reader going until the conclusion. They want to see what happens in the story. If they hit the point where they don't want to see what happens in the story anymore because they're frustrated with structure or what the character is doing or the lack of movement or the lack of what the character is doing, things like that, risk the writing skill, but don't risk it too hard. Definitely take measured risks. Okay. And a lot of those risks are kicking your characters in the pants sometimes. Just dealing them a bad hand in a card game. Really great example of this. If you've ever seen the movie Casino Royale, not the original, I'm talking about the one with Daniel Craig. There's a scene where they're playing poker and James Bond goes for broke, right? He thinks he knows Le Chiffre's tell. And he goes all in to try and throw Le Chiffre out of the game. But the villain of the character, the villain of the story, Le Chiffre, was playing him. And he ends up losing everything and gets kicked out of the game. James Bond gets kicked out of the game, right? Because he loses. He had to make Le Chiffre lose. He bet it all on a single moment, and he got it wrong. That's a risk, right? Like, your audience is expecting him to be right. They're expecting him to win. Like, oh my god, he's risking it all. He's definitely gonna win, right? No, he loses. He fucking eats it. He gets embarrassed in front of the entire table, right? Because he got it wrong. But then the question becomes, okay, well, James Bond still has to get the bad guy at the end of the day, right? Right? So how does he get him if it's not through the card game? That's what keeps people going, right? How does this situation, this like impossible to overcome situation, how does it get resolved? How is James Bond going to be successful now? Does he just walk into the room and shoot Le Chiffre in the face? No, that doesn't work. That's not how he solves problems. Only when the bullets are already flying, right? So someone is writing a story should we have several drafts of the story to see what plays well? I think that divides your efforts too much. What I mean by that is that if you're constantly like, okay, in this version, the main character punches kicks a puppy. In this version, the main character buys a book at a bookstore. In this version, the character tells a lady that she's ugly. In this version, the character tells the lady that she's really hot and he wants to date her, and she says no. If you're trying to divide your efforts like that, you're missing the point, right? I personally write stories in a way that's one cohesive thread throughout the whole thing, right? There's a line of thought that goes through it, and sometimes I have to go back and I have to change something, right? Like I'm writing Galaxies Beyond right now, and I wrote a piece of lore for the Elfay, which is an alien species in Galaxies Beyond. I wrote a new piece of lore that actually contradicts with something that I wrote in a previous part. Well, I have to go fix that. I have to, change a couple lines that Talia in that story says. Well, what if I have someone read a draft of my story, which I have people do that. My wife, Nicole, reads everything that I write once I feel like it's ready for someone to look at, right? Because she's really good at diagnosing something that doesn't work. She's like, I don't know about this. And she's really good about telling me about that. Conversely, I feel like I'm pretty good at giving her feedback with, food and other things. I should hope I return the favor in some way. But Nicole reads everything that I write when it's ready to be read, right? And sometimes she'll say, I just didn't understand what this part meant, or I didn't understand the point of this scene, or I don't understand why it ended the way it did with this scene, stuff like that. Well, now I have to go back and I have to figure out, one, she's usually going to tell me, hey, this didn't make sense because it was going this way and then it just stopped, or something like that. I have to go cut up what I have there. I have to cut out something, usually. There's like a chunk of text that doesn't work anymore. And rethink the situation. Okay, how does this situation resolve where it doesn't break the continuity of what happened before and still makes sense with what comes after? Well, let's see. We have a scene where Jack is walking through a market, and later in the scene he encounters Talia, this Elfay warrior. But let's say Nicole said, I felt like he walks in and then just immediately something happens. Okay, so he needs to experience something about this alien environment that he's never seen before, right? Like he's never been to this place. So he's looking around and it's filled with people he's never seen before, doing things he's never seen before, but some of it's relatable. Like they're cooking food, they're selling things at store, stalls, things like that. Okay, so maybe he's hungry. Like he just got off his spaceship, he's in this space station, this market, and everything. Maybe he's hungry. Ooh, he just smelled something really tasty. He's gonna go follow his nose. What did he just smell? Smelled some food. Goes up, talks to the person. Doesn't speak the language because he's in the middle of alien country. Nobody there speaks English. There's not any, God-fearing Americans around out in alien space. So he can't even order food. Right? It would be weird if he walks onto this alien space station and just immediately can talk to everybody and they can talk to him. So something needs to happen if he's to communicate. He either needs to try to piece together how to talk to people, get really good at signing what he means and hoping it doesn't offend other people. Things like that, right? When you go back and revise, it should be from the perspective of like, I am cutting out. Let's think about it like surgery, right? Let's say you, let's say the bit that doesn't work is like some kind of foreign object, like a bullet that's in somebody's shoulder. You go in, pull out the bullet, pull out the stuff that doesn't work. It's not supposed to be there. Doesn't work. Pull that out, and you either stitch things back up or you patch it up in a way that makes what is over on the before and the after weave together, right? Sometimes that involves just small adjustments in the part that doesn't work. Other times it can be paragraphs of refinagling what's happening, right? It really just depends. It depends on what the problem is. To revise stuff as you go to make the story more coherent. Yeah, that's what I would say. Because what's going to happen is if you write several different drafts, several different versions of the same thing, you're going to think later in the narrative, like, oh, he kicked a puppy in this version, and he didn't kick a puppy in that version. So you reference an event that never happened in that version of a story. That's not good. Like, hey, remember that one time he kicked a puppy? And the reader's like, what the fuck are you talking about? What? When did he kick a puppy? Why would you kick a puppy? I don't know if I can follow this guy anymore. He kicked a puppy at some point, apparently. Alright, so personality quirks, life events, challenges, problems, ambitions. This is a big one. And when I say ambitions, I don't necessarily mean that your character has to be ambitious. Lack of ambition is works just as well. But beautiful example. Princess and the Frog. I really love that film. I really like Tiana as a character because she's one of those Disney characters that she has a very strong identifiable goal. There's something very concrete, meaningful, and central to her as a character that she wants, needs, desires, and will do pretty much whatever it takes to get on her own terms, right? Her best friend is someone who is fabulously wealthy, could easily get her the restaurant club, you know, that she wants, but it would be meaningless if she didn't earn it herself, right? She's all about earning her way through life, not just taking a handout. So her ambition of, I want to start a business, I will do what it takes to make this business, that is something beautiful. It speaks to who she is. She's very driven. She is industrious. She wants to make something happen. She's very diligent about it. She will skip out on luxuries in life in order to get closer to the thing that she really wants. And that's probably the thing that most people that watch that movie will identify with the most, because it's something that's so pure about her character. Like, oh man, I've wanted to do something and I was never as dedicated as she is. I always thought it would be cool to have a bookstore, but I didn't go and work 17,000 jobs and save everything in a glass jar, every single tip, every single bonus, every single paycheck, everything that I had in something to make that happen, right? But she's doing it. And a lot of people will see that and like, man, I wish I was that driven. I wish I was that dedicated. That's something very real, almost tactile about her character, that is so, it's very likable. And maybe other people hate that, right? They're like, oh, she's so driven, she gives up everything about herself in order to achieve her goals. Like, some people are kind of like, whatever. If they're one of those people, they don't deserve the story anyway. Just throw them away. But the fact that she has a goal and she's working towards that goal is awesome, right? Like, we want to see her achieve that. But oh no, everything else happens to stop her from getting there, right? I think what I like about The Princess and the Frog is how I understood each character exactly. Tiana is hardworking yet stubborn about help. Her best friend is spoiled but isn't a brat about it. Yes. She doesn't hold over the fact that she has all the money over her friend whatsoever. I'm sure, and this never shows up on screen. My wife and I talk about this all the time. I'm sure that I can't remember her name. Why can't I remember her name? Her friend. I'm sure her friend and her dad have offered to buy her club for her. And she's been like, fuck that. No way. I'm earning this. Right? And I'm sure that dad leaves a big fat tip every single time that he goes to get beignets in the morning to make sure that she gets that little push that she needs to get closer to her goal, right? Again, it's something that's never shown. It's never shown. I am certain that it happened, and it's all because of the personality traits that they give, like the little notes, the little things that the characters say, how they present themselves. The fact that I can extrapolate that just from what they present about the characters on the screen, that's awesome. That's good writing. It works. Let's see. Trying to think of other categories. Maybe we'll come back to this. Okay, so we've got some ideas of like what makes a main character. They should make the story happen. They embody a major theme. They embody the major theme, and likely several secondary themes. Most of these themes, like the major theme and the secondary themes, usually exist because of the main character and their opposition to the antagonist. They should be active, not constantly active. There is always time for rest or a little bit of backtracking, things like that. They should never be infallible or omnipotent. This is not to say that they need to be weak and ineffectual, but they shouldn't have a ready and easy solution to every single problem without any challenge whatsoever. Pursuant to that, they should be challenged on most steps of the story. They should be somewhat grounded. There should be some kind of anchor to some kind of reality, right? They need to eat. They need to go to the bathroom. That one is especially something that George R.R. Martin loves to talk about in great detail. I can't tell you how many times he mentions someone needing to take a shit or piss in the Song of Ice and Fire books. The amount of times that I've heard about how a character needed to make water is it's a little disturbing. But everybody's got to go to the bathroom. So good job there, buddy. You did it. The point is, they're not a cartoon, right? Cartoons you connect with on a different level. Most main characters are not cartoons. And if they are, you work to those strengths. And there should be something that the reader can identify with in the character. Should growth happen, like lessons the main character faces that they didn't learn beforehand, so the mayor... Yes. Lessons should be happening constantly, whether it's reinforcement or something new. Let's see. Let's add a little bit of depth to challenges. Whoops. That's not right. That's not what I meant to do. So, kinds of challenges that you could face. Moral. They are faced with something that challenges their moral fiber. Whether they have to choose between, one person dying or a group of people dying. They have to choose whether to put someone in prison or to allow them to be executed. They have to choose between busting one of their friends out of jail or allowing justice to work its course, or obeying the law, period, whether they agree with it or disagree with it. Moral challenges you see constantly in fiction. Physical. They come up against a fight. They gotta fight. They gotta be tested in feats of strength, agility, tenacity, stamina, mental. They're faced with a puzzle. They're a detective and they have a new case, and it's really challenging because there's not a lot of evidence to work with. Things like that. Let's see. Unforeseen complications. Let's say they're a thief, right? They're gonna rob a bank. They get into the bank and things are way more complicated than they thought, right? There's laser security. Oh my god, now I have to deal with lasers. Crap. I knew I should have brought my laserator to make these lasers not be a problem. Now I have to, flit around and jump around, not get detected by the laser detection net. He finally breaks into the vault, but all the money is gone. All the money is already gone. Holy crap, why is all the money gone? Why would the money be gone? Now I've gone to all this effort breaking into this vault and there's nothing here for me to take. Okay, we broke into the vault, we got the money, we're gone. But one of my friends got caught. Now he's being carted off to jail. What am I gonna do now? If I let my friend get caught and he talks, then I'm done. I'm gonna be carted off to jail. They're gonna find me eventually. But if I try to bust him out of the clink, then I could get caught also. All that, right? Unforeseen complications happen all the time. You finally liberate a town, but then one of your friends gets shot in the knee and they become a guard in Whiterun. You're like, I used to be an adventurer once, then I took an arrow to the knee. Shit like that, right? Let's see, other challenges. Environment. They get to a town, volcano erupts. Now they gotta run. There's lava pouring down the volcano. There's ash pouring out of the volcano. It's by it. They gotta get out, right? And they're being challenged in their ability to survival. Environmental survival are kind of the same thing. Maybe they're forced to retreat. And this goes along with backtracking. They're faced with something so impossible or so scary, or something that they can't overcome now, that they have to fall back. They have to retreat. They have to run away, right? Or they're outright defeated. And they're caught. They've been imprisoned. I don't know how to spell survival. There we go. I forgot a V. I'm sorry. I'm sure that was annoying somebody at some point. This is not an exhaustive list, but it gets you a pretty good idea of the kinds of challenges. Immaturity, emotional, mental immaturity. Yeah, it could be. It could be. I would lop that into kind of mental, moral kind of thing, but yeah, we could say emotional. Especially turmoil. You know, they lose somebody and they have to deal with moving on when they probably really don't want to. So let's move on to the make a character part. Since we kind of have an idea of what a character, what a main character is, the kind of role that they have in a story. So I am. Let's get some details out. This is a game about a hopeless fight against an unstoppable demon army. The prince of the kingdom of has to fight with everything he has to keep his kingdom from being overrun. All right. It's kind of a basic story, right? So our main character is the prince. Prince what? What's the name of our guy? Sometimes you'll have a name come right away, right? With a prince of a kingdom, often the name is somewhat related to the name of the kingdom, but not always. Let's see. Let's call the kingdom Drakenward, right? It's a good, strong kingdom name, Drakenward. So you could do like, it depends on what kind of setting you're going for. Is this like a European style, fantasy? Is this, kind of a Asian, Southeast Asian, even, Pacific Islander kind of fantasy story? Is this a Nordic kind of fantasy? Is this like super specific folklore from a very specific part of the world? Like, I don't know, Egyptian folklore, which does exist, not just Egyptian mythology. Things like that. Thinking about setting can inform choices like the names of characters, or the names of places if it's a fictional place. So I'm gonna go with something like Prince Revan von Drakenward. That's a pretty European coded fantasy name. You ever met someone named Drakenward? Probably not, but you understand the kind of feeling that that name brings, right? It's cool. It's got dragon in it. It's the Von makes it sound, ooh, that's a cool. Revan is it sounds like Raven. It sounds like it kind of has this like phonetic cool factor to it because it uses sounds and phonemes that you don't normally hear. Like, you don't hear a lot of people with V's in their names. You don't see things spelled where the I or E sound is replaced with a Y. A lot of names don't end in or IN, YN, things like that. Now, is this a super relatable name? If we were making a super relatable name, maybe it would be Prince Bobberton from Bobberville. Bob Bobberton from Bobberville probably isn't a prince. just gonna throw that out there. Probably not a prince. Probably not a very princely name, so I don't think that'll work. What's another name we could think of? Let's see. I'm trying to feel something out here. And Tarsi. See, this is it's kind of feels like Romanian, or kind of like vaguely Mediterranean, Balkan-esque. You could even argue like a little bit of Italian or Latinate. It's a flavor. Anda Maltarsi. Some names you just want it to like kind of flow off the tongue. Revan von Drakenward is a little bit harsher. You're kind of painting the picture of someone who's a little more stoic, right? And if their name doesn't match that kind of stoic bearing, it may not be the right name. Or maybe other characters are like, dude, you have such a cool name, but you're such a lame dude. Stuff like that, right? And the Martarsi, that's a cool kind of name. It's something you don't hear all the time. Maybe you want to use a real name, right? Price. Nice. Prince Alistair. Prince Alistair what? Prince Alistair Ludon. Yeah, that definitely feels a little royal. See that? The other way to do this is Alistair Richard Bobert Stark at the end Ludon. Like, you basically give them like 19 names, because often royalty did have like 500 names. A name can be connected to personality. It basically, when you a name should feel right with the character, right? It's not always easy to do. Sometimes you get a name that's just wrong. It doesn't feel right. It's like, I don't know if I would like saying this person's name a lot. And I actually do recommend, if you're naming a character, say their name. Say it a lot. If you can't stand hearing that or telling another person that name, like if you were to tell, I don't know, your parents that name, it's like, do you think that's a cool name? And you were to cringe if you told them, probably won't work. Revan von Drakenward is kind of a fantasy name, but it works for the setting. I feel like, this is a hopeless fight. Let's go ahead and bold that. This is a hopeless fight against an unstoppable demon army. And this is a story of surviving, of trying to hold on, trying to buy one more day, basically. So the story kind of calls for a stronger feeling name, because you want someone who's going to stand up against this chaos, right? You see what I mean? This isn't always the best thing to do. Maybe often people aren't named something that makes sense for them. Like, have you ever met someone named Lauren and you're like, you don't look like a Lauren? Or have you ever met someone that has like a really fun frou-frou name and they're like a real dick? It happens sometimes. Like, you meet someone named Fifi and they're just a giant turbo bitch. It happens. They have like a really florpy name and they're just, not that. It can happen. In fact, most people are not named something that means something or means something about them. So sometimes giving like weight of meaning to a name for a character just doesn't work. It doesn't feel right. It's like, oh, this character's name is Aluminum because they're light and flexible and they're adaptable and they're infinitely recyclable. Like, you can't name someone Aluminum. Maybe a robot, but a prince in a hopeless fight against a demon army named Aluminum. Even something hard like iron or steel, like Steel von Drakenward. I'm sorry, that sounds dumb as fuck. So a name for a main character should be tolerable, fits in the story's genre, the general story, or fits the character. Yeah. In some way, shape, or form. Sometimes you might want to make the name fit the parents more than it does the person. Right? Maybe our Prince Revan here, he is a little, shit-stained, but his parents are royalty. So they named him Revan von Drakenward, but to his friends, he's Rev, or Ravi, or, whatever, right? Nicknames can fix some of that, and you also have that opportunity of like, oh well, you have a stupid name, shut up, that's the name my parents gave me, stuff like that. Yeah, heritage is a big deal, especially for characters that are part of royalty or some kind of inheritance line. People that are in business often have some kind of heritage or lineage aspect, but not always. It's very okay. Classically, like if it's a European country, probably some sort of lineage tie. If it's in America, yeah, probably not, because economic mobility is a thing here, very much so. Not to get to huge economics debate or anything like that, but it's just true. Let's see. I feel pretty good about the name. Occupation. Our Prince Revan is the acting leader of the kingdom. Both the main character has no name at the beginning, but as a coming of age story and names themselves. Risky. Very risky. Because you want your audience to have something to refer to them by, even if it's just in their thoughts. They can't just look at someone and say like, oh hey, Mr. No Name did something in this book and it was really cool, but he doesn't have a name. It's weird. Instances where it has worked. The Mandalorian with Grogu, for an entire season, a season and a half, we called Grogu Baby Yoda because it looked like a baby version of a character that we already knew from Star Wars. That's not going to work for other characters. That's a very, very special case. Often what'll happen is if the main character doesn't have a name, they probably have amnesia, which is a very overplayed story trope, but it still has its place. Usually another character will name them, or they'll find something that gives them some kind of thread of a name, right? Yeah, exactly. There'll be something that they start tying an identity to at some point, because one of the most basic parts of identity is name. When you meet someone for the first time, one of the first thoughts that you have is, what is their name? I want to figure out what this person is called. I need to know how to refer to them other than, hey dude, or hey you guy. Your reader's going to do the same thing. What is your name? You know, a bunch of letters on the page. What is your name? And if there's not some kind of answer relatively soon, the reader's going to be like really confused all the time. Like, oh God, who's doing this? Oh, Mr. No Name. Oh, all right. But you as a writer are also going to have difficulty writing that, because how do you refer to this character? The person with no name walked down the street. Then the person with no name also. It's okay. You're saying the same thing over and over again. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You need some variety in your narrative to really kind of keep people, you know, interested, right? So that's something to think about, right? So our occupation for our character is acting leader of the kingdom, because life event is parents just died in battle. There we go. That is something. See, could a Stitch situation be played as well? Like a character had a number, then someone later in the story gets named a legitimate name. It can work. It can work. It still has similar risks, but it's somewhat mitigated. It can work. What I would argue is, in that situation, they already have a name, but then they get a they go from a dehumanized name to a humanized name, something more relatable that turns them into from a statistic or a clinical, you know, blah, into a humanized thing. This isn't to say make them human, but it humanizes them in the audience and the character's perspective. Do you get what I mean? This parents just died in battle. What the hell did I write? His parents just died in battle. So that's why he is acting leader of the kingdom. In fact, this situation is so pressing that he hasn't even been crowned the new king, because shit is so real with this fight. Let's see. I like to kind of have a little collection of life events, right? It's kind of important to understand who this person is, and a really good way to do that is to look at like who they are, where they've come from. And the secret here is that not all of this stuff comes up in the story. I could write an entire bio about this guy, and maybe 10 to 15% of it never sees the light of day, or the complete opposite. Only 10 to 15% of it actually gets used in the story, because the rest of it is either irrelevant to the story or the character's place in the story, but it does inform who they are, and your audience will be able to feel that, but not know exactly the origin of that. You don't always have to connect. Yeah. Let's see. His parents just died in battle. Let's see. What were some life events for Revan? Fell off his horse the first time he rode it. What are some other life events? Oh, here's a good one. Asked the princess of a neighboring kingdom to marry him and was rejected. Ooh, that sting, man, that stings. That will come up in the story. Because I think we're gonna have that princess show up in the story. Why not? Question is she the princess of the kingdom that maybe just was conquered by this demon army, right? Or is she in the kingdom next to them that's also being, you know, overrun, or behind them, and like the kingdom is basically using his kingdom as a sacrifice? Like, well, better you than me, man. This right here, this little seed right here, has so much potential for later in the story. It's loaded, man. It's got a lot of different directions it can go. What's some other things? Became crown prince when his older sister died of a mysterious illness. There's a lot of shit there going on there. How about he is a bit unstable on his feet due to the horse training incident? Maybe he's even a little afraid of horses. Or he was. Right? Was afraid of horses for years after. There you go, right there. Little itty bitty bits. Because here's the thing: if you fall off your horse, you end up being afraid of horses. It's actually going to inform how the character acts around horses. Do they have a level of respect or a different bearing around horses than they do others? You know, they were afraid. They learned to not be afraid anymore. Is he more affectionate to his horse as a result of having been afraid of horses? Right? Is the horse that he has now the one that finally changed everything for him, and he's like deeply connected to his horse as a result. Is there always a hesitation when you take up the reins? Are you extra cautious when it comes to fixing your saddle or mounting your horse? Little things like that. Little notes like that can nudge the reader and like, hey, there's something there, but you don't have to call it out. You really don't have to call it out at all. Sometimes you just imply a life event. That's kind of enough. Maybe that's why he's not going into battle himself, because his fear of horse prevented him. Could be. Could be. There's a lot of possibility there. Let's see. Life events. Was grounded for 2 weeks for carving his name into his father's throne. Yeah, that's a character builder right there. And grounded for 2 weeks is pretty good for that. So his parents are probably a little bit of pushovers, let's be honest. If you carve your name into a throne and it's not even your throne yet, ooh, yeah. Let's see. I would hesitate to put something like slips out to, slips out of the castle to mingle among the common folk, because that is so overdone. It's so overdone. It's so overdone to the point that audiences expect a noble or royal character, especially a young one, to slip out and mingle among the common people, because they're of course going to be so much more in touch with what people actually want because they're younger, right? It's this big trope that I'd probably avoid. Yeah. There's of course this impulse, because you want your character to have a reason to connect to characters outside of nobility and royalty, right? Someone who's down to earth, who can make them more down to earth. But your way of doing that can it can make more problems than you might think, or it can honestly kind of work against you, because like, oh, another noble that skips out of the castle to mingle in the markets. Oh look, there's Aladdin running around with Jasmine over there too. Woo! Let's see, what's another good one? Life events. Grandfather died when he was... here's a good one. His first clear memory was of his grandfather's royal funeral. And he was 5. Yeah, your first clear memory is something sad. Ooh. And just think how often that happens, really. Yeah, the negative or the sad memories are often ones that have maybe not undue staying power, but exquisite staying power. Originally banished from the kingdom for playing pranks on his parents. Let's see. Banished, I think, is too harsh. I like where you're going, though. Maybe. Here we go. Given to the master at arms to train as a soldier from let's see. Sent to sent to learn sent away to the okay, here we go. So we're not gonna do the whole like, oh, sneaks out of the castle to mingle with the common folk. This is how he's gonna get connected to some normal people. Sent away to the countryside to learn under the old knight commander. Because he was such a little biatch. Prankster. He was such a little bitch. Let's see. Not sure about age. Age 5's not bad. I think it's too early though. I could see that being like teenager, preteen. Yeah, why you gotta be such a biatch? Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what his parents said. I like that. That works. Definitely It's like, hey, we're sending you off to the countryside to learn under Knight Commander Krusty because you're such a little biatch. Can you stop? All right, that's pretty good. We've got an interesting group of life events here. And the thing is, I kind of dance between these. I'll work on other things and I'll come back like, oh, and that's where this thing comes from. There's a life event that happened to him that caused, this personality quirk, stuff like that. Let's see, personality. Serious, stoic. Tries to put on a brave face, even though he thinks they will lose. Not loose, lose. No, not thinks. He knows. Because this is a hopeless fight. He knows they're gonna lose. Yeah, he's trying to stay brave for everyone else. And that it's one of those things where like you're holding on for everyone else, even though you know you're screwed. It's one of those things that can it's one of those beautiful moments of determination that it can be very compelling for a reader. Like, oh my god, he knows they're gonna lose and he's still fighting. He doesn't just doubt. He knows they're not going to win. And he's still trying. And that's not to say like if they're successful, oh, it's all because he, persevered. It's like, dude seriously thought they were gonna lose. Let's see. Has difficulty switching off in leisure. Not necessarily a workaholic. He just can't switch off battle mode. Which is probably a good thing because if it's a hopeless fight, you should probably be ready to fight. Silently grieving. I am terrible at spelling tonight. There we go. Silently grieving. His parents. And more. And that's one of those things that, like, it can be a temporary thing. You could have a cathartic turn where You know, like maybe things are starting to look up, and that helps him make peace with the fact that he's lost his parents. Or you know, maybe things continue to go downhill and he makes peace with the fact that he's going to be seeing them soon. And that brings him some dark comfort, you know. There's a lot of ways you can work with that. Let's see, other personality traits. But he is creative. And not risk adverse. The reason I wouldn't say that he's risky is that he doesn't have a lot to work with. You know, his kingdom is fighting a losing battle. So he can't afford to just like charge into battle and not have some hope of some kind of victory. But he's not afraid to put the chips on the table when it matters. Right? Get what I mean? What if he got embarrassed in front of a crowd of adversaries and now has a slight stutter in a crowd? Cocked up a public speech so badly he has a lingering fear of public speaking. Wow, holy crap, typing. Reluctant to speak to a crowd, and that is something that makes being a prince very difficult. Because it turns out when you are a leader of people, you have to talk to them. Let's make that a large crowd. And that would cause problems if you can't speak to your soldiers and inspire them. It can be difficult to continue on with a fight. You know, there's a famous line from Napoleon where he says, "You can't expect a man to fight for pence a day. You must speak to his soul and electrify him." If Revan is reluctant to speak to a large crowd and is nervous, you know, has difficulty communicating to a large group of people and tries to basically delegate that could be directly detrimental to his goals of trying to save his kingdom. That has serious consequences. So yeah, I hope you guys don't mind me like interpreting and kind of like, you adjusting some of the suggestions. I think it helps to make the to build this character, but I'm also trying to show you how like you can take an idea and work with it in a way that like fits in. You know, several of these things like in another setting would feel differently, right? Like if he was always afraid of his horse, like that would be a perfect setup for a comedy kind of story. But here, like, he's got to ride into battle on a horse, and he at least was at some point afraid of horses, and maybe he'll talk about that. You know, maybe he sees someone else who is afraid of going into battle, and he talks about when he was afraid of his horse after he fell off his horse. And it helps them kind of overcome that, you know. Let's see. How old is Prince Revan? I know I'm dancing around here a little bit with like different things, but like I said, I kind of like to do that. It helps to build, because otherwise, if you try to just stick to things in a row, like I have to get all the personality traits out now, and then I need to do all the life events, you're gonna get stuck. You're just gonna get stuck, and you're not gonna really outline who this character is, and you'll never be able to write for them. It just won't work. Build. He is... Let's go stereotypical. He's tall, strong, built like a warrior. Warrior. There you go. Too many R's. Holy crap. Way too many R's. Warrior. He's 17, young enough to be unsure about things, but old enough to be somewhat mature about things. I've thought about that. I was considering younger. But if he's possibly sent to learn as like a teenager, preteen, but he still has like memories with his parents enough to be extraordinarily sad when they're gone, right? And if he's doing public speaking, he was probably old enough to do some kind of public address on behalf of the royal family. Now, of course, depending on, you know, the time period that this takes place in, 20 is kind of like on the older side of youth. But, you know, we have a couple of notes here, like, you know, he asked a princess of a neighboring kingdom to marry him and was rejected. And, you know, maybe he's been reaching out and it keeps going wrong, right? So now he's getting older, and his parents are like, why aren't you married yet? You know, it's kind of like this interesting reverse of what you see in stories, you know, of like young heiresses or you know, princesses, like, you have to marry a prince. Well, he's trying to marry a princess. He's trying. It's not working. It's because he fell off that damn horse. Or I don't know. Could be because he's afraid of public speaking. Could be because he carved his name into the throne. Ugh. Yeah, that's a bad move. Yeah, I kind of like 20. I want him to be just a little bit older. Have like basically the parts of him that are immature, the parts of him that is unsure is because of things he's encountered, not necessarily because of his age, but because of bad experiences that he's had before. Ladies heard about the horse incident and they're just like, swipe. Is it swipe left? I think it's swipe left, isn't it? I never used a dating app, so I wouldn't know. Strengths. It's a pretty important category. Just as important is weaknesses. Let's see, strengths. Determined. Even when he knows he's going to lose. He is skilled with weapons and strategy and tactics. Man, this piece from Unicorn Overlord is basically adagio for strings. That's interesting. What is this called? Let me look at this piece from Unicorn Overlord. Tragic. Well, that's appropriate. Yeah, if you've been wondering, I've just had the soundtrack for Unicorn Overlord on while we're talking here, because I just got the game and I really enjoy it. And I kind of wanted to just listen to the music while we work. Let's see. Skilled with weapon strategy tactics. It's always a good idea to have like an unexpected strength, something that people wouldn't think about for someone in their position, right? And a lot of people would log this under like, oh, make it a quirk, like he's really good at playing jazz piano or something like that. But a lot of times an unexpected strength comes in handy in ways that you wouldn't expect, right? So maybe he has perfect pitch. But terrible at singing. It's like he can hear the notes, he knows when they're right. But he sucks at singing. And it's a little comedic, even with something serious, like a serious story like this. You want to have some whimsy, some fun in there. Because if it's all rocks and hardcore and just like, oh man, he's had the most tragic backstory ever. It's just not believable. It just doesn't work. People would be like, God, how could anybody fucking live like that? That sucks. Even though people probably have lived like that and have lived much more excruciating lives. Very intelligent. Great at puzzles. History buff. And he is terrible at magic. All right, so I'm going to list this as a weakness. But I think this is a weakness in terms of story. Some people might be like, well, how is that a weakness? I think it can be argued that this is a weakness. Trying to think of how to phrase it. Not faithless, but in constant conflict with matters of faith. And this kind of feeds into, like, somehow he's determined, even though he knows he's going to lose. And this would be something that, like, in a lot of characters would probably be based in faith. But him, maybe this determination comes from this conflict that he has with faith. Like, he probably finds it difficult to be faithful when his, you know, in some kind of higher power, when, you know, a demon army is knocking on his doorstep and threatening to overtake his country. I think a lot of people would have a conflict of faith. That's a horrifying place to be in. Knows, under strengths, knows when to take a risk. I could see blunt. Oh, you know what? What I would probably, I'd probably interpret that as over serious. Has difficulty. Holy crap, can I spell today? Letting loose. Or seeing others. Relax. Not necessarily joyless, but it's hard for him. Another weakness. Recurring nightmares. Can't sleep. Which only makes his situation that much more perilous. Slow to trust is another weakness. As a result of recurring nightmares, being over serious. Too easy to anger. See how, like, a lot of these, personality traits and weaknesses, they all kind of feed into each other. If you're not sleeping, you're probably quick to anger. It's probably hard for you to trust other people, especially if you're not weak in terms of faith, but like your faith is a giant question to you that never gets solved. If you're competent in some areas but not in others, it can make you it can really just make you angry. It can really just make you angry, especially the things that you're not as good at, that you would like to be good at. Like, he's terrible at singing, but he has perfect pitch. You know how many singers would love to have perfect pitch? Yeah, it's a pretty decent set to kind of work with, right? Now, a lot of this is just like words. It's on you as the writer to really kind of compose all of this into a person. But you do that by connecting a lot of these things together. Kindness was taken advantage of. One. I have an interesting interpretation of that. One of his guards attempted to assassinate him. When he returned to the capital, has had trust issues ever since. Yeah, that'll make you have trust issues when one of the people who's sworn to protect you tries to assassinate you. That'll do it, man. Let's see. So his goals are pretty self-explanatory. Save his kingdom. By any means possible. I have a feeling that if he had to do something unspeakable in order to save his kingdom, he probably would do it, because at this point he knows they're going to lose. He knows he'll never be successful, so any chance to do it would probably be the best chance he'd ever have. And when you're desperate enough, you'll pretty much do anything. And pursuant to that, find the demon that killed his parents. This right here, this search for vengeance can risk utterly compromising his positive traits. You know, if he were to finally find the demon that did this, and you know, we're assuming that somehow he found out who it was, like it was a general in the demon army or whatever, sees that and he throws everything away just to try to kill it. You know, he compromises a battle just for a chance. Compromises possibly saving his kingdom just to bring justice to his parents. That would be a really huge moment in the story, where his fear, his knowledge that they're going to lose comes true because he makes it come true, whether purposeful or not. And Needs to discover a traitor who did something. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm feeling it. See, a lot of this is like intuition. I'm kind of following what is this character saying to me now. When you have enough of a framework here, enough of a vision of who this person is, if you're like really working on who this person is, seeing them as a person instead of just like words on a page, they'll kind of start to tell you what their problems are, right? And I really feel like there was a traitor. They did something like you know, the border fort that the demons first attacked. Someone opened the gate, let the demons in and take it. And if they hadn't done that, his parents wouldn't have ever been in danger. Something like that. You feel me? See where I'm going with this? This gives him another secondary objective, basically. And when one or both of these is achieved, or maybe one of these is never achieved, like maybe he never finds the demon that killed his parents, but it's something that pulls him through the story. Like he thinks he sees the demon, and it throws off something else, right? The point being, these are things that if these goals are achieved, it makes the reader feel like they've gotten somewhere in the story. Like if you find the traitor who put your parents in danger in the first place, it turns out they were like paid off by the demons, or you know, something like that, right? Like, oh, they let me live if I just open the gate. Then Revan finds this miserable meat sack that gave up the whole fortress. Finally deals with them, right? Whether it's incarceration or puts them to the sword, whatever it is. One, it's a character moment. You get to see how he reacts to this. What does he do? What is his sense of justice? Is it, you know, death for the crime? Is it put him in prison, put him to work? You know, that's an important question to answer, especially with someone in an authority position. What is justice to them? But this gives this person an opportunity. This gives this character an opportunity to either live up to an already pre-established sense of order and justice, or succumbing to, you know, a sense of revenge and trying to make something right in this crushing world, right? All of these things, the goals, life events, personality, weaknesses, strengths, all of these are opportunities to set things up that can then either be turned on their head, or the promise that those things make followed through on, right? From here, you could work on, what does this person look like? You know, we kind of already got a sense, you know, tall, strong, built like a warrior. Looks. You know, he has hair and eyes. No mouth, just hair and eyes. You know, whatever, right? Like, you put in details. What does this person look like? Let's see. We're seeing. Black eyes. Short brown hair. Cuts it himself. Military style. Like, he doesn't even bother with the royal hairdresser. Dude just fucking does it himself. Because, you know, being raised out, well, spending his preteens and teens out with Mr. Soldier Man made him, you know, kind of shuck off the whole, like, ooh, your royal hair has been cut, your highness. Oh, thank you, thank you. Stubble beard. Yeah, definitely, Jaden. You know, the death, avenging the death of his parents is definitely something that would increase morale in the kingdom, you would hope. No scars or tattoos. No besmirching of the royal flesh. You know, you can get really detailed in that, so you could be like, where's size 13s? Has a hairy chest. You know, all kinds of stuff. You kind of want to have like a very well thought out physical description of what this person looks like. Trying to think. What else are we missing here? Oh, list friends, associates, enemies, rivals. I put a semicolon there. Oh. Ooh, sorry. Surviving family. And this is something that, like, as you write, you can come back and fill this in. Like, Tasha of Tasha Mendovar of Southwayne. And she's the chaplain healer. Oh, let's see. Ekomar. Lendis. Archmage, Akomar, Lendis. Dude does magic. Failed to teach. Evan. I thought in my mind for physical traits was a tiny thought yelling, uneven nips. There you go. That's perfect. That's how you know. That's how you know he's the hero of the story. Under friends and associates, things like that, you can put, you know, details like, you know, failed to teach Revan. Was the one student he could never teach, and loves to remind him of that. Tasha Mendovar, you know, she likes him, he thinks she doesn't. You know, dedicated to him, he doesn't see it. You know, things like that. Enemies and rivals, you know, of course, you could put, you know, the demons that he's going to face, but also, like, political rivals. That's going to happen. You know, maybe there's a noble that has been trying to jockey for the throne, like they have some sort of claim to the throne, and they're trying to effectuate a takeover through legal means, you know, stuff like that. Surviving family is a big one. You need to know who's still alive. You could even have, you know, something here for dead family. The point is, with a character outline like this, is that you understand pretty well who this person is. To the point that you could go and write about this person and it would almost be reflexive. You know, how they would react to something. You can feel what they would choose, because this person isn't just words on a page anymore. They're a person that exists now. You just need to put who they are, what they are doing, into a storyline that other people are going to read and experience them also. So all of these things, like, I can tell you right now, most of these things, most of these life events, even the fact that he has perfect pitch and stuff like that, probably never going to come up in the story at all. But I know about it. And because I know about it, it informs how this person reacts. It informs in me who this person is so that I can show it to you. See what I mean? Does that make any sense? I hope it does. I have a little bit of a surprise for you. What we've been working on here, this is actually going to be a character in a future series that I'm working on right now. I've had some ideas for a new story that is, a hopeless fight against an unstoppable demon army, kind of thing. So we actually have been working on the main character for this live right now. This person is going to be written about. You are going to be able to read this character's story, and you're gonna get to see how much of this changed during the writing. What's kept, what's altered, what stay, what it kind of evolves into during the writing, things that I couldn't have anticipated when I was, working on this. But this is like the starting point for a character. Do you need to do this for every character? No. Should you do this for every main cast character, like the ones in the main party that goes along with this guy, right? Or every major character that is going to show up in the story more than once? Yes, you should be doing something like this. Not this exact thing. Doesn't have to be exactly this. But something like this. Something that helps you understand who this person is. And I really want to emphasize that. You are making a person. Not a tool, not a character. You are making a person. And because you are making a person, if you keep that fixed in your mind, that you want this to be someone that exists, right? If you treat them that way, you will make them much more believable. The extra thought that will be put into how this person thinks and feels will come through in the writing. Every character in the Bones of Night has something like this that I worked on for them. Every character, even the characters that only show up once. And that was one of the reasons it kind of took a while to work on this, because I needed to know what this person was like before I could write for them. Most of the characters in my other stuff, Avalon Academy, Defiant Horizon, Galaxies Beyond, the new series that I've been working on called Superpower Panic. They have things just like this that I've been working on for them, so that I really know this person when I'm writing for them. you're never gonna see these. You're never gonna see these outlines. Because things change over time. As I write the characters, things will shift. Maybe a life event will be a little different or something like that. But this is your starting point. This is where you start from. And when you're starting to write somebody, you can come back to this and be like, oh, he was 20. I forgot. He's 20. Oh, one of his, he's tall. Oh, why am I saying he's shorter than this other person? Ugh, weird. Right? So this basically serves as a nice little guide to begin with and allows you to grow the story from there. I highly recommend that stories start with characters. There have been far too many examples of stories that are basically top down, like the story just happens to characters instead of characters driving a story forward. Now, something like this, he's fighting an impossible fight, a hopeless battle against an insurmountable foe. That runs the danger of being, him being static in the story. So in order to break out of that, we need to see him make decisive actions. He charges into battle with his war band to try and stem the flow, right? He's actively looking for this or that. He's looking for a weapon. He's looking for answers in a library. That's how you keep a reader glued to what a character is doing. It's like, oh my god, how is he going to do this? He just, fought a battle and he nearly was killed. Half of his warband is gone. Is he going to be able to recruit enough people to, fight again? Is he going to find some kind of secret, ancient super weapon? That's the secret sauce right there. Well, this has been a pretty deep dive into what makes a main character. There's a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to story. Like I just said, I like to start with characters because it helps you shape a story that much better. Some people start with settings. Some people start with side characters even. I had a friend who built a story with side characters and then fit the main character into it. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but it's something you could do. Yeah, pretty much, Jaden. Yeah, I'm teaching you a lot of things that I've learned over the years, both in college, just writing on my own, reading books, all kinds of stuff. But that was kind of the idea behind this, is let's just, take some of the wrapping paper off of this whole process, give you a little bit of insight into some of these neat little things, how things work. But I've been talking for way too long. I can feel it. My throat's like, okay, you're done. I hope this has been extremely helpful. if you want, you kind of want a refresher, like if you're writing something and you're like, what did he say about that? This is going to be available on demand, so you can replay this at any time. There's a lot of good advice here, I think. Stuff that I wish I knew when I just started writing, when I was in middle school. So, yeah. Hope you all had a good time. I can't remember if I'm on the air next week or not. I'll let you all know. I should be. I can't remember. Probably not. I don't know. It's a weird time of year. Things happen all the time. No, Jaden, you had really good questions. Don't feel bad. Asking questions, period, is very helpful, because then I know, like, okay, well, this is something that we could, dive into. So don't worry about it. That's good. Yeah, I'll let you all know if I'm going to be on next Friday. I honestly can't remember off the top of my head. But we are officially 2 weeks away. No, not even. Yeah, 2 weeks away. Just over 3 weeks. 3 weeks away. Holy crap! I can't numbers from my book coming out. Bones of Night. I would highly suggest / implore you to pre-order. I think it's a wonderful story, wonderfully spooky, unsettling story. Not necessarily joyless, but hard. It's bleak. There we go. There's a good word for it. I think that it's got something interesting to say, and I haven't quite seen another story exactly like this. And I think you all will enjoy it. I hope you all would enjoy it. Yeah, that's. I'm pretty much hitting the limit of me talking right now. My throat hurts so bad. I hope you all had a wonderful time. And talk to you soon. Until next time, I bid you good fortune, good health, and good game. And I'll see you in the next class. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you so much for watching the show. Check out the links down below and come hang out in Discord or social media with us. Until next time, I bid you good fortune, good health, and good game. And I'll see you in the next class.